Standing up in McKinney. This is According to Callis. It is May the 29th. The significance in 2023 is that is when we observe Memorial Day. Episode 423 is going to be about Memorial Day. And you know, this is one of those things where there are certain people that just don't understand the significance of it, and they say something as simple as Happy Memorial Day. I'm sure I've said it at some point in the past. I mean, when you're young, when you don't understand the significance and what the importance of the day is supposed to be about, I mean, I would suspect the vast majority of people that use the reference happy before Memorial Day don't mean anything by it in a negative way. They're not actually celebrating. They're enjoying their long weekend. They're thinking about the time they get to spend with their friends, their family. A good number of them will observe the loss of loved ones, particularly those that are military families. And, you know, and you'll see the memes float around about the difference between Armed Forces Day, Veterans Day, and Memorial Day. And that's all well and good. But one of the things that is particularly causing me pause this year is the understanding, and I want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due, largely based upon listening to Brian McClanahan. If I gotten a much clearer understanding of the importance of what Memorial Day or Decoration Day was to signify. You see, after the war between the states, the Civil War, the War of Northern Aggression, the War of Southern Succession, whatever you want to call it, the rebellion, right? Whatever your favorite descriptive term is for that war, once it was over, there was a whole lot of dead Americans. There was a whole lot of dead people that thought they were doing what was best for their country or the way their state or home state felt about things, right? They were pitted against their own family. They were pitted against their brethren, and most of them didn't really fully understand what was going on. And the people that were left behind, I've heard reports that the war dead alone were 2% of the population. That doesn't account for all the people that starved or died from sickness or other diseases directly related to what was going on as a result of the war. You know, and I'm not going to take this time to relive the war because, quite honestly, as a raised Yankee, somebody from Wisconsin, we only heard half the story, right? We heard about how great it was that the North went to go free the slaves, and only through the great leadership of Abraham Lincoln did we manage to do that. And unfortunately, bad things happened, like Sherman's march to the sea and Grant's wholesale abuse of soldiers. But that doesn't explain the plight and the terrible things that went on as a result of the war between the states. So when it was done, when it was over with, and all the people that were left behind, it was done. They wanted to put it behind them. They wanted to move on. For the South that had been subjugated and forced into essentially a military dictatorship, forced to do certain things that they would have never agreed to before, at the point of a gun, at the threat of violence. They capitulated. They gave up. They became a subservient group of states, and all they wanted to do is be treated as equals again. And a lot of bad things happened along the way. A lot of what we would term evil. I mean, that's just the simplest way to say it in 2023. A lot of terrible things happened, and I got to believe that a good amount of that was just directed at the wrong people or convenient scapegoats or people that just quite frankly got in the way. That doesn't excuse anything that happened, but the idea between Decoration Day, or Memorial Day as we call it now, was to set aside the differences and show the respect and honor that those that died and sacrificed to their country were due. It was an opportunity to set aside those differences and to pause and consider the ultimate sacrifice of some. And, I think it's interesting the way that history's been tainted by political outcomes, right? But that's always been the case. It always used to be told that history's written by the victors. Yes, in large part that's true, but history is also written by the people that stopped to actually document what they think happened or what they say happened. And oftentimes what they think happened and what they say happened wasn't actually accurate. It was far more involved, more nuanced, more challenging to understand all that was going on. It's a very simplistic, boring way to look at things, and everything's black and white. I mean, even looking at World War II, it's very simple to paint the Nazis as evil and black, and they were. Or the Japanese Empire, which acted in much the same way, but we give a free pass to the Soviet Union. We get a free pass to what the Hungarians did. We gave a free pass to what the Czechs and the Slovaks did to each other. We give a free pass to much of what went on in what became Yugoslavia. We ignore what the Turks did after World War I. We downplay the importance of what the Japanese did, which is ironic because it was India, one of their largest victims of their abuses, not the, but one of, that said, well, if we're going to hold Japan to this standard, might we not have to hold everybody to this standard? Indeed, a great deal of men came home after World War II, and some women too, right? And we don't want to dismiss the fact that women served and that they played pivotal parts, but the vast majority of the people involved were men. We wiped out generations of men in every war that has come by. And to what avail? Did we protect liberty? Did we expand freedom? Did we respect the God-given rights that pre-existed government? Did we do anything to legitimately make a positive outcome? Yeah, I had always been told that, the only good war was World War II. Okay, fine. I'll agree with you. The Nazis were terrible people and they needed to be dealt with. But what I don't understand is after the war was over, Eisenhower saw fit and the Russians saw fit to basically starve out millions of people in Germany because, well, they were related to those that had committed those atrocities. How does that make us any better? Rather than moving forward and doing what happened after the Civil War, which is bury the swords, right? We're all on the same team now. Nope, we continue to punish them. And I'm curious as to what would have happened if we would have not been so vindictive. Interestingly enough, in many ways, we were just as vindictive as on the southern states that failed in their independence movement, right? We punished them. We starved them. We destroyed their fields. We destroyed their ability to conduct commerce. We wiped out a generation of men. And they accepted the fact that they lost, and they were prepared to move on. And at some point, even Grant, even Sherman said, okay, enough is enough. We're going to move on. Indeed, a great deal of men that were, let's say, on the wrong side, they lost. They did great things after the war. They redeemed themselves. And to this day, the only thing that a good number of people care about is the fact that they were on the wrong side of the war. Nothing they did after is to be accepted. There is no forgiveness. Well, that's not what Memorial Day is all about. That's not what Decoration Day started as. No, it was supposed to be, we've moved on. Both sides lost a good deal of men doing what they thought was best to protect their country as they understood it. Certainly, even in today's day and age, we can understand the fact that somebody did what they thought was best. We can respect that. We don't have to agree with what their conclusion is. We don't have to agree with their opinions, but we have to be able to at least set aside that they thought what they were doing was best. They thought they were protecting their homeland. They thought they were protecting their family. They thought they were protecting their home state. And they put their bodies where their mouths were. So on this Memorial Day, just 2 days after my own party slit its own throat, and they're going to come before us here in 6 months or 8 months and plead that they had to do what they had to do, and we need to move on, and we need to forgive them, and we need to just accept the outcome and be done with it. I'm sorry, but I'm going to take Memorial Day, and I'm going to think about the sacrifices that men were willing to do when they were doing what they thought was the right thing. They didn't put out a bunch of mamby-pamby posts on social media about how they were torn over their decision, and they prayed about it, and they did this, and they did that. Really? Really? We've had the wholesale abuse of our Constitution, the wholesale abuse of the limits of power, both at the state and federal level, and you guys haven't done jack diddly squat, but you saw a cheap stunt to take out another member of the government, and you want to be applauded or forgiven for that? Well, first of all, doing it on Memorial Day weekend is just sad, beneath contempt. Secondarily, a good deal of these same folks have referred to us that support our own independence, that support our own claim that Texas would be better off without the other 49 states as an albatross around our necks. They've called us traitors. They've called us seditious. Yet these are the same guys that violate their oath. These are the same guys that take their time to purposely ignore certain things and act what I would call rashly about other things. And of course, as always, just in case you're wondering, this is clearly my opinion because the name of the show is According to Callus, which means everything is my opinion. And I will lay out something that is a direct fact when I'm aware of it, but everything else is my opinion on the matter because you are listening to a show that is named According to Callus. Just in case anybody listening should think that I'm making a direct criminal accusation. Oh no, I'm not. I'm merely pointing out the contempt in which I hold the people that call us names. They refer to us by different pejoratives when they're allegedly on the same team that we are. And they trot out the same excuses again and again and again. If we wanted them to be consistent, I would imagine half of the entire government by now, or better, should have been impeached or removed from office for some kind of malfeasance that they have committed. But no, they selectively choose those that they're going to cull from their organization based upon their absolute loyalty to whatever fake cause it is that they support. Now, the stronger challenge here is, how shall I pledge my allegiance to these people that abuse power and ignore their own oaths? How should I trust them to be good leaders? Why would I believe anything that they do and say? They haven't earned it. Now, I'm not necessarily ready to take the fields of arms. I'm not necessarily ready to sacrifice my body, my life, my fortune, my good name on a battlefield. But what I am willing to do is say, there have been a couple million men before me that were willing to give the ultimate sacrifice to do what they thought was best for their country. And I don't think that I'm going to do any different. I would suggest those that would dismiss those of us who respect those that have come before us, those of us that respect our written Constitution, those of us that respect the oaths that we've given, those of us that respect our family and our kin. I'd like to remind you, we've been down this path before. And while the outcome is not known, it will be messy. We're not there yet. We're just not. But when the time comes, the question is, will you be willing? Will you be ready? It's frustrating. It's disappointing. Each and every time, I think we're taking a step forward to protect liberty. Each and every time, I think we're going to get something to show for our efforts. Our legs get kicked out from underneath us. The people that allegedly are on our own team sell us out. Sometimes it's for money, sometimes it's for power, sometimes it's for a little of both. But they at least do us the favor of outing themselves, showing themselves to be worthless allies, showing us that they're not worthy of the title leader, show us that they're not capable of doing the right thing at the right time. Oh, some will do what they call the right thing. And I mean, you could argue that it's the right thing, but at the absolute wrong time. But most of the time, when it matters, when it's the most important thing to do the right thing, they suddenly forget how. They sell us out. They cave. They capitulate. And it doesn't matter if it's in D.C. or Austin. At this point, it's getting extremely difficult to tell them apart. And it's going to be a sad day. A sad day when the general populace comes to the rationale that our leaders have sold us out. And our leaders are the problem. And I just don't know. I'm going to be careful how I say this. I don't know that if there's going to be enough lampposts when that time comes. The people on the right used to laugh and make memes about taking people for a helicopter ride, but I can't help but think about how Mussolini found his end when his people had finally had enough, when they realized that he was not a good guy and he didn't have what was best in mind for the rest of his country. People will put up with a lot. And then sooner or later, they've had enough. So on this Memorial Day, I would caution those that would seek to do what they continue to do, which is abuse their power, ignore our liberties, and quite frankly, are being wholeheartedly irresponsible with the mantle of leadership that they were given. Again, both at the federal and the state level, and remind them that sooner or later they won't be just answering to God. They'll be answering to we the people. And with that, this was According to Callus. I'll be back on Tuesday. Until then, I'll see you on the other side.